Soon after the shooting at Pole's nightclub in 2016, a lot of gay and bisexual men realized something that left them frustrated. They were not allowed to donate blood.
Our coverage of the deadly shooting in Orlando and the outpouring of support from people wanting to help the victims.
A Southwest Florida man overcome with emotion in the wake of Orlando's deadly rampage. He's now trying to help the surviving victims who are fighting for their lives. But there's one problem. He says he's been denied from donating blood more than once because he's gay.
Based on the current FDA restriction, men who have had sex with other men in the past 12 months are deferred from donating blood. But when was this put in place and why? Initially, this restriction was introduced in 1983, and until recently, it was a lifetime ban for men who slept with other men. At this time, the US was in the midst of the AIDS crisis, and there was still a lot of ignorance about HIV and its transmission.
Which shows that the lifestyle of some male homosexuals has triggered an epidemic of a rare form of cancer.
Researchers are now studying blood and other samples from the victims, trying to learn what is causing the disease. So far, they have had no luck.
One of the things they knew was that this was a blood-borne virus, and the virus was affecting mostly the gay community. At this time, with their limited research and knowledge, it made sense to have a temporary ban on blood donations from gay men. But what does this ban mean now, 35 years later? The FDA updated its ban in 2015, changing it to a deferral for men who have had sex with another man in the past 12 months. So essentially, if you're gay and you want to donate blood, you just can't have sex for a full year. So like, a lot of us can't donate. But what are the actual risks of having sexually active gay men donating blood? Well, HIV is no longer a death sentence, and heterosexual people are also at risk of contracting the virus. Men who have had sex with other men remain at the highest risk of infection. In 2016, 40,000 people were diagnosed with HIV in the US. Of those, gay and bisexual men accounted for 67%. But science has come a long way since the ban was introduced. Donated blood in the US is not only tested to see which patient can the blood go to, but also to look for possible diseases or infections that might be present in the blood. So in theory, most donations from people who are HIV positive will show up in the results and therefore won't make it to a blood bank. But the concern lies in what they call a window period. The window period is the time between when the virus is contracted and when it's detectable. The risk here is that someone could contract the virus and donate blood before it shows in the test. The reality is that HIV screening tools have significantly improved since 1983. Now we have a shorter window period and more sensitive tests after the window period has passed. Using the testing methods of 1987, tests after an 8-week window show a chance of infection in 1 out of every 153,123 units of blood. With today's methods, a risk of infection is 1 in 8 to 12 million units of blood. So why does this matter? Well, as it turns out, we need blood. In 2018, the Red Cross sounded the emergency alarm for blood shortage, and these shortages are common throughout the country. These constant blood shortages occur partially because only 38% of the US population is eligible to donate blood, and only about 10% donate blood yearly. According to the Red Cross, a person in the US is in need of blood every 2 seconds, and 1 pint of blood could save up to 3 lives. Lives like Nathan's in Arizona.
Nathan was born on August 24, 2014, a healthy baby boy. 3.5 months, Nathan started to look as if he had jaundice. His belly was really extended, and I started to question his appearance and how he was behaving. I took him into his primary care physician. They drew some blood, and I received a phone call around 11 o'clock that night telling me that my son's hemoglobin was a 4 and his spleen was in his pelvic cavity, and that I needed to take him to Phoenix Children's Hospital right away. And we spent the next 9 days in Phoenix Children's Hospital. Within that 9 days, Nathan received 3 blood transfusions back to back. Nathan was having weekly blood transfusions, and they slowly spread out to about 2 weeks and then eventually 3 weeks. Now Nathan just received his 61st blood transfusion, and he can go anywhere between 3 to 4 weeks before having to receive another blood transfusion. There was a time that we were asked to come back the next day because they didn't have his type of blood in the blood bank. In worst case situations like natural disasters, things like that is a really scary feeling, because without blood transfusions, my son will pass away. And at that time, it doesn't matter who is donating the blood. It's the fact that we're getting blood for my little boy and people just like him. I sign a document stating that I understand that he can contract HIV, but the benefit of my son receiving blood completely outweighs that risk, because without a blood transfusion, there is no other way for him to be alive. He will die. So yeah, I'm gonna take that risk. I'll take blood from anybody who's willing to get it, and that means more than anything in the world to me. The life of my son truly is in other people's hands, and that is the worst feeling in the world to feel as a parent.
Now, while the US recently lifted the lifetime ban, there are other countries that have screening processes that might allow us to donate more blood. In Spain and Italy, for instance, each donor's potential risk is approached individually to determine high-risk blood donors. For example, if a gay man is in a long-term monogamous relationship, he could be considered low risk for HIV and therefore a safer candidate. On the other hand, a straight man may be considered high risk if he's recently had unprotected sex with multiple partners. Blanket assumptions based on sexual orientation are avoided with this individual approach, and screenings become based more on what is described as risky sexual behavior and not necessarily who you're attracted to or who you have sex with.